Hello, this is Doug Gerlach, president of ICLUBcentral. Welcome to our ICLUBcentral Investment Club webinar. Today is Tuesday, October 18th, 2022. Tonight we've got a very special presentation. Our senior technical support specialist, Sean Pulrang, will be discussing using and reconciling the investing and cash accounts at myICLUB.com. So this will be a very interesting presentation. We've got a brand new feature that we're introducing tonight, part of our continual enhancements to our myICLUB suite of tools for investment clubs. As a reminder, you can download the PDF slide handout of the presentation in the Handouts tab. So feel free to grab that file now. It'll also be available when we archive this webinar on our YouTube channel. And if you have any questions as we go, feel free to type those into the questions box. In the back office tonight, we have Russell Malley, who is ICLUBcentral's club accounting advisor, and also Treva Dildeen, who is a support specialist as well, who has been handling a lot of the myICLUB customer support inquiries as well. So you may get a response from them if you have questions, but we'll be pausing for questions halfway through the presentation as well as at the end. So Sean, I'm happy to say, is celebrating his 20th anniversary with ICLUBcentral in the support department. And in that time, he's overseen a lot of the support tools that are used, a lot of the products he is well familiar with, especially on the investment club side. And tonight, we're going to be taking a look at a new account reconciliation feature. This is designed to help treasurers match up their books with the transactions in their myICLUB club accounting records. And Sean took the lead in the development of this feature. So I'm very pleased to turn it over to Sean to talk about that feature and also give a good overview of using cash accounts, creating cash accounts, editing, renaming, and the procedures that you can go through to make the myICLUB tool work according to your own preferences. There are many tweaks, and we've made some other adjustments that Sean will be discussing as well. So with that, please welcome Sean Pulrang.
Thanks so much, Doug. So as you said, tonight is about creating, using, and reconciling cash accounts in myICLUB.com. So first thing, just a quick definition here, cash accounts, that's any financial institution where the club might deposit funds, invest, pay expenses, receive income. Usually that's going to be a bank, very often a credit union, a brokerage firm, obviously if you're an investment club, sometimes a direct stock account. There may be some other options there that we haven't just thought of yet. But if you're a myICLUB club, you start out with 3 default accounts. When you first set up on the website, you get a bank, a brokerage, and a suspense. So the bank, and again, this might be obvious, that's usually your traditional corner bank, your credit union or what have you. Your brokerage, that's your TD Ameritrade, your Charles Schwab, E-Trade, the list goes on there. Suspense we set up not with any particular institution in mind, but just as an extra account for the club to use. I will say these days, and as you go through, you might see this a little more. I'll make a reference to back in the day, suspense was probably a little more useful. Back when you might have to do a wire transfer from your local bank to your brokerage, you would want to make an entry that showed the money was moving from one place to another because it was not as instantaneous as it is now. If your club has been around using the Club Accounting 1 or 2 or any of the earlier versions there, you might also see something labeled as a petty cash that was originally used for off the books non-investment. So birthday parties, holiday parties, taking someone out to lunch. We eventually got away from that once we started putting non-investment expenses as a regular transaction into the accounting. So using the cash accounts, this is really for your convenience and as much as you might want to make sure you're keeping in balance. It's the sort of thing where does not necessarily have to match exactly. If you have something that says bank, that could be, for example, the total in, again, your local bank, plus a little maybe that you put aside. Again, maybe showing my age, talking about having a coffee can with a little extra cash in it for a little bit of postage, taking people out for coffee, or what have you. These days, and this is when I run into myself, that you might have more than one brokerage account that you're keeping track of. I have myself, for my own personal accounts, I have two, and it's nice to be able to just set these up and have the accounts in the club. As I say here in the slide, there are a couple of different options that you could set up. Multiple brokerage accounts, you could have a single universal account. The options really are up to you. I will say one thing not mentioned on the slide here to keep in mind is there is no off the books account. There is no way to make an account and say, we're keeping this money, but we're not going to claim it anywhere. That anything you put in the accounting does get counted for taxes at the end of the year. So be careful not to try to set up a this is not for investing, IRS, don't look here sort of account for yourself. So, and again, showing my age, I'm going to say that a lot tonight. Thank you, Doug, for reminding me that it has been just a little over 20 years. That these days, since so many things happen electronically, you don't necessarily need to write checks as often. And since most brokerages offer now most of the account keeping needs that a club would have had a regular bank for, it's entirely possible your club might only have a brokerage and a suspense account. As I say here, that again, you check with the brokerage and make sure, but a lot of times you're not writing maybe more than 1 or 2 checks in a year, if that, because primarily you might be doing that on a member's withdrawal. But again, even with a withdrawal, these days most clubs would end up transferring from the brokerage over to the members. So as we give a little example here that you can deposit physical checks, most brokerages will accept some form of that. But again, it's the sort of thing where increasingly you're probably doing a lot of it just entirely electronically. So that said, let's take a look here. This is if you're starting from anywhere in the myICLUB site, you go up near the top of the page, you click accounting, you click cash accounts, and you'll see something like this. Now we've set up here a couple of sample accounts, and you can see along the left-hand side of that page, it's most of the transactions, which I will say we're not really going to touch on too much tonight. It's more the right-hand column there, the new cash accounts, the account balances, editing the transactions, editing the accounts even. So in this overview, we'll take a look here, and as I say, we'll zoom in a little bit and be talking about renaming, adding, deleting, and changing around the default and inactive accounts. So first thing, renaming. Zooming in a little bit here, you've got every account has, as you can see, the name, the balance, and the 2 little buttons there. That is a little pencil. If you click on that edit, it will come up and default assumes what you're looking for is renaming. So you can take an account that is named just brokerage, and a lot of clubs will do this. They'll go in and name it for the actual brokerage that they're using. Again, not necessary. We're not telling the brokerage isn't telling us, but it can make the reports look a little bit more personalized if it doesn't just say brokerage or just say bank at the bottom. So as we say here, you type in the name, you click submit, and there you are. Now also, as we're going down the list, the create new cash account, again, fairly easy. You click the link, you name the account, and what you'll notice is it does not say that it needs to be a specific type of account. It doesn't say that you need to make it a brokerage or need to make it a bank. All it's asking is, what's the name of the account? What do you want to call it? You type in the name, you click submit, and it'll be added onto the list. Now, a fairly recent addition, and I think most of us here are very happy about this, is the ability to make a default account. And so what we've done here is we've got the 2 options sort of the big bins here, you can mark as default for cash and security transactions. So that's any buying, selling dividends for stocks, any interest and expenses for cash. It'll default to assuming that you want to use one or the other of the accounts. And then your other column there is member transactions, so any deposits or withdrawals, or if you have to use them, a member fee. You put the little dot in there, and then it makes it just, again, a little bit easier as you're going through your transactions, that if you're putting in all the dividends for a month, you don't have to keep switching it back over to bank just because bank comes first alphabetically over broker. And if need be, if you added in an account you didn't need, or if you've got an account that's been put to zero and doesn't have any transactions, you can click that little trash can icon as we've got it highlighted there, and it'll take the account off. Now I will say, I'm not going to go into it too far here, but there is a safeguard on that. So if you click delete accidentally and you click delete on your bank account and you didn't mean to, the site will come up and say, oh, here's a list of all the transactions that you would have to either move somewhere else or otherwise account for. So it's a nice feature if your club has moved from one account to another, or again, if you set one up and end up not using it. It's a nice little bit of cleanup that you can do there. You don't get a giant long list of accounts. Now there's also, if you have switched accounts, and again, some clubs have run into this year and in past years, we've got that column at the end, the mark inactive. We've got the example here of petty cash, but also if you had an account at a bank or brokerage that you closed out for whatever reason, and you don't want to have that showing up, you can also click the mark inactive, click submit, and that'll make it so it won't show up on this page, and it'll show up only as an inactive account anywhere else. So you won't see a whole bunch of extra lines on your valuations or your monthly reports there if you've marked it inactive. And this one also is a nice little feature there. If you want to do a quick double check on the balances at certain times of the year, from this page you can go in, change the date, click the submit, and then the site will roll forward or backwards if you're checking accounts and balances for different days, and again give you a quick and easy way to check what the balances were at any given time. Now we've got, this is one of the few transactions, and this is one probably, I will say, hopefully most clubs won't ever have to use, mostly used if your club is switching over from something like a spreadsheet, or if, fingers crossed that this hasn't happened to anyone, but if you're switching over from keeping it in a logbook somewhere, you might use this opening account balance, also called sometimes a beginning balance transaction, just to set the balance of the club, save you maybe a little bit of time from entering a lot of historical transactions to get yourself started here. So my apologies, I might be going a little fast, but Doug, do we have anything you wanted to call out there for the moment?
Sean, you're doing great. We have no questions at this point, so let's keep plowing through.
Okay, all right, very nice. So move on. Yeah, as soon as I get the site going here. There we go. And now this is the part, and I've made a joke with a few folks here. This is the part I'm excited for. This is a feature I've been looking forward to having in the online accounting, the ability to reconcile essentially built into the site instead of something that you're doing in a pad of paper or a spreadsheet or in a Word document. So we've added this ability to reconcile. So this is something, before we get into the screen itself, it's something that we are recommending that a treasurer do on sort of a regular monthly basis, along with your entering your deposits, your cash and securities transactions, creating your valuation. We're suggesting also, never hurts, go in and run through this little reconcile that we're going to show you tonight. And as we have in years past always suggested that the club do an audit on the club books, having this reconcile we think is going to make that much easier. If you've been running the reconcile month to month and things have been working out, it'll make that audit committee's job that much easier when they're checking things over for the end of the year. So if you sign into myICLUB, we activated this afternoon, and take a look from the main accounting page, you'll see under Wizards, you'll see Reconcile Accounts. This is meant to help you match the transactions that you've got in the club books now to the transactions that you're looking at on the brokerage statement, and hopefully help you identify if there's any places or transactions that don't match up or just aren't in there. That we're hoping this helps you along. So, like the broker sync, if your club is using it, when you first click reconcile, it will ask you to make a backup. And I think even more than using the broker sync, I strongly encourage, because the reconcile does have the option to fully delete a transaction from your club records. It's not easy. There are a couple of steps to do so, but just in case, 100%, again, maybe even more than the broker sync, advise that when you click reconcile and it gives you this option, by all means, click that backup my data and continue. And then you'll get to this screen here. So I'm going to go over this in the following slides, but just sort of top to bottom, it'll show the ending cash balance. That is by default whatever the most recent ending balance is on the selected account. It'll show what it calls a starting balance of reconciled records. It'll show the list of transactions. You can see here we're starting, and this is again for the first time your club opens up the reconcile. It's going to start from January 1st of whatever year you're in by default. You've got the start date. You can always set that back. And I'll get into the other parts a little bit more. They'll make a little more sense as we go along here. So 3 main sections. That's selecting the account and entering the balance from your statement. There's also the matching transactions to the club's books, and the review and confirmed reconciled amounts. So first off, that part at the top, the site will show the ending cash balance for the account. And so as I say, this might look a little odd the first time you go in to see it, because it will show transactions for the entire year, but it will show also whatever the last balance available for, in this case, it's selected for broker, but you can choose the bank or whatever other account you've got set up. So if you sit down to do this, for example, mid-October, it will show you what the balance is on your bank or your broker account in the middle of October. So you may need to adjust that number a little bit if you're looking at reconciling perhaps just the end of September, or maybe you're working back a little bit further into August. Just something to keep in mind there. It's also going to show that what it calls the starting balance from already reconciled records. And again, the first time you go in, it might look a little odd because it's going to show you the starting balance from the end of the previous year. And this is because by default, we assume that previous years are considered already reconciled. You can always go back if you want to, but again, default, we assume that if you're this far in, probably everything has worked out in the prior year. And so that gets you into the list of transactions. And this is sort of a simple list. It's just every transaction you've put in, buys, sells, deposits, incomes, expenses. As you can see, the withdrawals, it just goes on and on down the list there. So as you see left to right, you've got a little checkbox for every transaction, the date the transaction happened, short description, and the amount. Every single checkbox you select will add to the balance of the account that you're working on. And as I say, it'll start date with January 1st, but if you wanted to, you could certainly change or adjust that. If you wanted to start mid-year, you might start again, you might put in September 1st just to work on the September transactions right now, or give it a few days and you could work on the closing out for October. So, and this is the bottom section here, and this is, I think, where it gets a little interesting again, is it'll show the last date you've reconciled. Now, again, first time you go in, that will say none, but it will keep track of every time you've come in to do a reconcile. So you'll get a little reminder there of the last time that you went into the site. You've got a few options. I'm going to skip a couple of the lines there and look at the buttons down near the bottom. So you've got a couple of options. One, select all. This can be useful if you're doing a prior month and you know that all the transactions for the prior month worked out. Again, to use an example right now, you might set the start date and select all if you know that your club's books are entirely in balance up to this point in the year. If you don't want to have to go through line by line, clicking, you can just say select all, and it'll pick all of the unreconciled transactions. Now, delete is exactly what it sounds like. This gives you the option to delete a transaction from your club books. Now, I will say that is, as I mentioned before, we do put in a couple of safeguards. Clicking that delete is not automatic. It does, while you're on the reconcile, it just hides the transaction. So if you see that there are 2 entries for member deposits and you know you only made one, you might select one and click delete just to clear it off of your list there and make the system take it out of the calculations that it's doing. The done button, which right now in this shot is grayed off, when you click that done button, when it becomes available, that does a couple of things. It will permanently remove any transaction that was marked for deletion. And also we've got, again, another little bit of a safeguard there, the cancel. If you click that, it will stop the whole process and take you out of the reconcile. So again, a couple of safeguards there from the delete option. So this is, again, something that we really appreciate here, that the reconcile keeps track of the numbers you've put in. So you've got at the top here that starting cash balance plus selected transactions gives you an ending figure, and the site matches that against whatever ending balance you have put in. And once the zero, or I should say, once that difference gets to 0, then what you'll see on the site is the done button will light up. So it won't let you finish the reconcile until you've actually gone through and double checked and made sure that everything works out. So this is a site you may come in and out of the reconcile once or twice if you find something that needs a little bit of an adjustment. But certainly we think it's better to go back and forth a little bit than to accidentally mark something correct or for deletion that does not really belong there. But once you get that difference to 0, you click done, and you are done with the reconcile. So a couple of things I came up with thinking about doing the show tonight is the reconcile does not have to be done for an entire month all at once. You could, for example, go in right now, set the start date to October 1st, and if you know what the balance should be mid-October, you can put that in as the ending balance, and you can reconcile, the last 2.5 or 3 weeks worth of transactions if you want to. There's nothing that says that you have to wait until the end of the month, and there's nothing that says that you have to do exactly a month. If you're in the habit of checking your brokerage site every 5 or 6 weeks, you could certainly, if you wanted to, run the reconcile that way. It won't force you to start at the beginning of the month, nor will it force you to go all the way to the last day of the month. You can go in and use that anytime you want. I also want to point out, and this is one that I like also, transactions can be skipped. The one that makes me think of this the most as I was looking at my own reconcile is if you know that the member deposits are all correct already for a given time period. Go ahead and put in what the ending balance would be with the member deposits, select all the deposits, and click that done button to say that they are all reconciled. Get the ones out of the way that you know absolutely are correct, and then you can go back and check and make sure those dividends came in, make sure that they're the right number of dollars and cents on all those transactions. So like I said, those are just a couple of things. I'm sure folks will find things as they go. So Doug, Have we sparked any questions?
Yes, Sue wants to know, can I correct these areas to match what we have in the bank and the brokerage?
Well, are we talking about the account balances? You can absolutely change the ending balance figure. Like I said, it'll assume to use whatever the latest balance is, but similar to the way you can reconcile for any set of dates that you want, you can do the same for the balance. Again, as I say, if you wanted to go in right now and reconcile through the third week of October, if you know what the balance should be at this point in the month, you can certainly put that balance in and reconcile using that. Again, you don't have to wait for the end of the month or anything.
Sue posted a follow-up that says when she started as treasurer, the cash accounts had not been reconciled for years, so she has no way of knowing how to handle it. So she's made sure for each year the records are correct, but the information in my iClub has, there's no way to know how to take care of the past records. So, but she can still use the tool. And wouldn't she want to start with most recent periods first and take care of the current records and then slowly work your way back?
I'd say that's probably something you'd want to check with support and have us take a look. I don't want to make a blanket statement, but as you say, the reconcile is built to assume that prior years are okay. So I would say maybe as a starting point, if nothing else, work out what the cash balances are. You might put in a temporary adjustment so that the cash balance at the beginning of a year is correct, that you know for sure, and then work through reconciling the transactions for the year, just to get at least the current year reconciled and worked out. But again, that's something probably best done on an individual basis.
Jesse says that when I manually reconcile the balance each month between my broker and bank versus myICLUB, there's sometimes rounding for some stocks. Will the reconcile feature help with that? Or am I using the balance at the broker or the balance at myICLUB?
That's a good question. I'll say,
well, if you want,
that's probably a case where you'd have to. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Let me answer it, because the balance of your investments at your brokerage account is irrelevant. Right? That's what we're talking about. We're talking about the balance. Now, as long as the cash transactions, the dividends, the amount of cash should match precisely, but what the broker records or shows as your total account balance can be different, because closing prices from source to source can be slightly different. There are some different ways that different brokerages might take the last transaction price, or the last bid, or the last ask price of the period. If the dates are not exactly the same, the prices might be slightly different from the prices that are in the myICLUB database. So it is really it's really irrelevant what the broker reports as the investment balance. The important thing is that the cash balances match up, because cash is cash. A penny is a penny, a dollar is a dollar. The value of a share of Microsoft changes from minute to minute to minute to minute while the market is open, and it's it's always going to be going up, going down to some degree. So that part of your valuation is really not very relevant, and that's why there's no reason. Some clubs like to have their valuation done at the end of the month, so that they can use their brokerage statement to kind of match things up. But I get it. I understand why they want to do it, but there's no reason that you have to. And the better procedure is to have your valuation be done as close to your club meeting as possible, so that when the members are sitting around looking at the valuation, they're seeing absolutely the most current information. And today, in 2022, you can have your valuation be done in, in a couple of minutes and be ready for a club meeting. Whereas years ago, you had to get the newspaper and write down the prices for your stocks, and it was much more. There was much more of a time factor involved in it. So the account reconciliation, just to be clear, is for your cash transactions, your income, your expenses, your deposits, your withdrawals of cash. That's what we're trying to help clubs find problems with those particular types of transactions.
All right.
Yep. Sue says she'll probably start with January 2023 because she doesn't have time to do this for 2022. Yeah, and we understand
Oh,
it.
sure.
As with, it's always our recommendation in best practices that it's so much easier to find a mistake when you're reconciling a month's worth of transactions where there's 6, 7, a dozen, 15, 20 transactions. But the minute that you have to go back a year where you've got several hundred transactions, or several years, and now you're looking at hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of transactions to find that 32-cent discrepancy. But we do have tools to help you with that. And so, as Sean said, contact support. We can direct you to the search function, the transaction search function, which lets you search for, if you've got a 32-cent difference that's driving you crazy, maybe you've got a 32-cent transaction that was double entered at some point, and so you can search for that amount and see that the transaction was misentered for 2002 instead of 2022 or something like that. So we do have a lot of other tools that are available to help with those problems. It's our policy, it's our belief that it is really not very difficult to keep your books in balance and reconciled with your financial institution accounts, but it does take but if you let it go for months and months and years and nobody is paying attention, then it's very difficult. It's massively difficult in many cases to find the cause of the problem. But that's why I'm excited about this reconciliation feature. And we really want clubs to take advantage of it. If not once a month, if you're a typical club where you've only got a dozen transactions in a month, it's not like your household checkbook where you might have dozens and dozens of checks and money coming in and money going out. Most investment club accounts really are not that active, so it should be fairly easy to sit down once a month with this tool. Makes it even easier now to keep everything trued up.
All right.
Looking at the questions, Sean, I think we're pretty much wrapped up at this point. Russell and Treva have been active in the back office, so things that aren't relevant to our topic tonight, they've been covering. But I think this is, I want to thank you, Sean, for the presentation tonight. If anyone has questions, you can always contact us. We suggest that you go to ICLUB.com/support. There you can file a ticket and our support team will be able to review it and get back to you. You can also call us on our toll-free number, reach Sean and Treva and the other members of the team during business hours, and we'll do our best to help you out. And our track record, I'm very pleased the support team has a very high customer satisfaction rating from year to year to year, much higher than most other businesses, the very high end of the range. So I'm pleased, very pleased with the work that Sean and Treva and the rest of the team do in the support department. So with that, Sean, I'll turn it over to you to sign us off.
Thanks, Doug. Actually, I was going to not to volley back and forth, but I was going to say, do you want to announce? I believe you've got the topic for next month as an epilogue.
Oh, that's right. We're coming up on our year-end schedule. So once we get into December and January and February, we'll be talking about tax preparation. But our next webinar in November will be on doing a year-end club portfolio cleanup. So we'll be talking about some of the tasks that you can be looking at, potentially doing some tax loss, tax gain harvesting, take advantage of the bear market declines, clean out your portfolio, do a review of your diversification, set your targets. So November makes a good time for that. December, everyone's too busy to pay attention, but November 15th, our next webinar, we'll be taking a look at those year-end portfolio tasks that you might want to undertake with your club. So thanks for that reminder, Sean.
Sure thing. And thanks to Russell and Treva and for everyone coming tonight. And we will see you all in about a month. Have a good night, everybody.